So my name's Andy Cox. I'm a director in control risks based in London, so I'll apologise now. My Russian is rubbish, and you're going to have to plug in, hopefully, for the final time today. I'll try and keep it brief. I know it's been a long day, and there's only two of us now standing in between you and drinks, so three. I'll keep it even briefer then. So I'm from Control Risks, international security risk management consultancy. We have 36 offices globally. As I say, I'm based in London, but I have a colleague here who runs the Moscow office as well. Prior to being at Control Risks, I was with Deloitte for 7 years. And on leaving Deloitte, I moved over to Control Risks to run a consulting practice for security and resilience consultants based across Europe and Africa. And what I'm going on to talk about is the output from a survey that we ran in autumn last year across our client base, globally actually, that really sought to kind of uncover a little bit more about what our clients were thinking in terms of resilience and what it meant for them. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. And without further ado, I will move on to really try and build on what we believe the definition of resilience is. It's something that is increasingly on the corporate agenda, and it's a kind of necessary requirement given the complexity of the current risk landscape, and something I'll touch on shortly. Some see it as business continuity redefined, maybe kind of upskilled, but for some organisations, some clients, it has become something that's evolved to be all-encompassing, something that is embedded in every function in the organisation, across the supply chain, and with third-party suppliers as well. So the survey we put together, as I say, last autumn, was really designed to understand the degree to which resilience has become current with our clients. And up on the slide there, we've kind of listed out the definition as we see it, which is really about the assessment, the anticipation, the preparation, and recovery from disruptive events. And all the while, at the back of our minds, it's about maintaining competitive advantage. Importantly, I think for us, it includes both preventative and adaptive strategies. So very much kind of the focus of today has been on the preventative side, but it should also, under the kind of definition of resilience, think about the adaptive capacity of the organisation to adjust in the event of disruption, so that it remains successful and can maintain, perhaps increase competitive advantage. So what do we see resilience as? So the three kind of core strands to this for us. The first is really about the ability to withstand disruption. And that's those kind of sudden shocks that may impact organisations. It's about not understanding the threat, interpreting the risk associated with that threat, and being able to analyse the risks as they're pertinent to the organisation, to develop mitigation plans that can be implemented in an effective and timely manner. It's also about how organisations, how our clients respond and recover from disruption. And thirdly, as I've touched on, it's about the agility of the organisation to adapt and move with changing circumstance to create that competitive advantage. And all of this necessary really because of the changing risk landscape over the last decade, perhaps 2 decades. we've heard kind of throughout the course of the day about the changing risks that various organisations face, about the impact of urbanisation perhaps. There are, without doubt, increasing numbers of natural disasters that affect organisations, but it's also about mobility of people, mobility of goods and capital. And all of this creates very interconnected economies, and through this, I guess, risk can accumulate, propagate, and needs to be, or ultimately may lead to a greater scale of effect of disruption. Leaner supply chains, cybersecurity, and global instability all play into this and compound the risk environment in which we find ourselves. I guess for us, resilience needs to address a number of risk areas, and some of those are listed up here. The ability of individual organisations to address all of these may be limited, and there are some up there you'll see under externality, which are well out of the capability of many organisations to manage. Solar storms being a good example. But organisations, clients do need to think about the kind of interconnectedness of their businesses, their organisations. Many are complex networks of systems and subsystems, and all of which kind of increase the impact of disruption. So without further ado, I'll move on to the actual survey that we conducted and the results that were produced on the back of it. So as I say, this was compiled in autumn of last year and was taken from across our client base globally. So we had respondents from across the globe. This is what we found. So effectively 52% of respondents felt that they captured risk really well. No great surprise there. Yet 86% of those respondents experienced some form of disruption in the previous 5 years, with 28% experiencing 7 or more disruptions over the course of that period. Now, 37% of those experienced disruption with an estimated financial value impact of over £1 million. Interestingly, I think for us, 60% of respondents felt that the ability to change or adapt was their single biggest internal threat as an organisation. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But this is absolutely fundamental and critical to organisations being able to manage their reputation. And 73% of respondents rated reputational damage as the most significant or concerning impact. Now, the resilience survey that we produced really kind of produced 5 key themes, and I'll go through each one of those in turn. The first was about the ability of organisations to monitor and analyse risks. Quite pertinent in the kind of light of discussions over the course of today. But there is a real disconnect between the risk monitoring and the analysis of that information. 52% of respondents said that they actively monitor the risk environment. Surprisingly low number, but nevertheless a good proportion of clients saying that they do monitor risk. However, 86% experience some form of disruption, and for us this really highlights a disconnect between the identification of risks and the adjustment of risk mitigation plans. And this may be down to the fact that respondents are either monitoring relevant threats or they're performing inadequate analysis on the actual risks that they face as an organisation. And they're not preparing the contingency plans in time in the event that there is disruption and they're obviously affected. So our view really is that organisations need to be looking at the broadest base of risks available and assessing the potential issues and really analysing the impact for them as an organisation. The second key theme coming out from the resilience survey was around this issue of responsibility, and it's been mentioned already earlier on this morning around the ownership of risk and ultimately resilience. Now, these issues could be political, economic, social, technological or compliance related, and many organisations are being proactive in their monitoring of risk, but it needs to be linked to the timely adjustment of risk mitigation plans. And in part, that's a function of leadership, of the executive of the organisation, and it needs to be embedded throughout the organisation at every functional level. The next theme that really came out through the responses that we gathered was around the fact that politics is a real risk to business. The survey indicates that 60% of respondents felt the most impact around political risk and political instability, and in fact that rated higher than the impact of political and security risks, and also higher than kind of macroeconomic volatility. It's quite interesting given the levels of perceived political stability and the stability perceived by organisations here. For us, this underlines two key trends. Respondents are very aware of the kind of interconnectedness of risk and the fact that politics does play a part on business objectives. But also, respondents are actively avoiding investing in unstable environments. Clearly, this impacts profits and operations, and they're keen to make the right business decisions, and therefore taking a very broad view of risk, looking at politics as it relates to their operations. The fourth area and kind of theme from the survey that we identified was really around the effectiveness and requirement for crisis management. Organisations really need to ensure that they have the right capacity and capability to manage disruptive events and crisis events at the same time, so that they can anticipate, prepare for, respond to and adapt to changing circumstances. The majority of respondents, as the slide shows, exercise annually. 78% of respondents exercise on an annual basis. However, perhaps, given the frequency of disruption that was identified, lessons from these exercises aren't being embedded back into the organisation and updated in plans. Robust crisis management structures and capability really aids effective support to a resilient organisation and helps organisations adapt and overcome disruption. The final trend from the survey that was identified was really around third parties. And quite surprisingly, resilience seems to be rarely on the agenda when it comes to considering projects and contracts with third parties. 35% of respondents never reviewed the business continuity plans or resilience plans of key providers in that contract negotiation phase. And that is in spite of the fact that 54% of them consider the most disruptive external threat to be supply chain disruption and outsource failure. So it goes without saying that supply chain disruption would result in failure to meet service level agreements or customer demand. And there's also a potential that reputational impact could be ruined as well. And it may lead to loss of market share, which was a direct concern of over 84% of the respondents. So the summary really from the survey that was produced was around those 5 areas. The disconnect between risk monitoring and the update of contingency plans. 52% of respondents monitoring, but 86% of respondents experiencing some form of disruption. The responsibility of resilience needing to sit at the executive level in the organisation, and 60% of respondents stating that they felt that the biggest internal threat to them as an organisation was their inability to adapt and change. The impact of political instability needs to be considered through resilience planning, and 62% of respondents were concerned about that political instability on their operations. The role of crisis management and the fact that there is a high level of exercising, but perhaps plans aren't being updated in light of those exercises. And if they were, maybe they would see a lower rate of disruption to their operations in the event of some disruptive event. And the importance of third-party reviews and kind of working collaboratively with third parties to understand their resilience planning at the contract award stage. Clearly, developing a resilient organisation is a massive challenge in today's environment. The best approaches are really based on principles rather than hard and fast rules, and guidelines provide a good starting point for many organisations, but they need to be adapted and adjusted to account for individual risk and threat environments and the unique nature of every organisation as well. Organisations that do become more resilient are more likely to prosper in the event of disruptive activity, and they're more likely to build competitive advantage in the event that their competitors are affected by a similar disruption. Now that really concludes the kind of output on the summary. I haven't brought any hard copies, but there is they are available for kind of download, and there's a big report that goes with it through the Control Risk website if you're interested. We are looking at running a similar resilience survey again in the autumn of this year, 2016, and we'll start to look at the kind of trends in how organisations are thinking about resilience planning more generally. So please do look out for it and complete it if you do see it. Okay. Thank you.